questions and then we're going to throw it straight out to the audience because we know you've got questions, and I'm going to cut down one of those questions very quickly and then ask a question that I can get an answer to. So the first question would be, is Jon Snow dead?
John who? Let me tell you a story about this. David Nutter, who directed the last 2 episodes, 9 and 10, last season, was in, I think it was Washington, and a certain man called Barack Obama came up to him and said, "You're David Nutter, you directed the last 2 episodes." And David went, "I know what you're going to ask." And he said, "Well, is he?" And David said, "Mr. President, he's deader than dead. Dead, dead, dead." So I hope that answers your question. Next question.
Next question. Okay, I only have one more. You joined Game of Thrones in season 2. They weren't there at the beginning. And my question is for most of the actors, you generally audition for the roles, or somebody says that person may be right for the role. Was it something you had to audition for, or was it something that you got a call for?
Good question. It happened to me twice. I auditioned twice. I was approached for season 1, and I went up and met the guys and the director at the time for a certain role, which I'm not telling you which one, because that wouldn't be fair. And they said, "Look, it hasn't worked out for this season, but we've got some really interesting characters coming in next season." And I kind of thought, okay, that's LA talk for don't call us, we'll call you. But true to their word, they came back and said, have a read of this character, and I did. And I'm very, very glad I'm playing Davos, because he's a fabulous character. I love him. Yeah, it's great. I mean, the scripts. I'll just say that an actor, the only thing an actor can do is judge from the words that are on the page. And I have rarely come across writing this good and grown up and mature and tough and jaw-dropping, and it's a joy to be involved in, I have to say.
Okay, now, as I said, I wanted to keep it interesting for you. You don't want to hear from me. The lovely Gatal has got the microphone, so who's got their hand up and wants to ask their question other than Jon Snow? Okay, she will make sure she works up the middle and the sides, so just towards the end of any question, get your hand up so you make her run the furthest.
One question. I want to get this one out of the way.
Another one.
Who do you personally think had the strongest claim to the Iron Throne?
That's a ridiculous question to ask Davos. It's Stannis. It has to be Stannis.
No, okay,
Look, on paper, Renly was up there, and we have to remember Joffrey had no claim to the throne because he wasn't Robert's son. So, I mean, by any legal system around the world, including Westeros, Stannis had the claim. Robert was the king. Next in line is Stannis. But Davos was trying to back the right horse, as they say, and he was the right man for the job. Maybe not anymore. But no, I definitely think he should have been there. He would have been, if we got rid of the Red Priestess, then he would have been a very good king. I think there was goodness in Stannis. It may have been buried a little deeply, but it was there.
What was the hardest scene to shoot in Game of Thrones for you?
Ooh, good question. The shadow baby thing was quite weird. I mean, when you're sent a script and the Melisandre was getting out, when she's getting out of this boat, I don't know if, I'm sure you've all seen it, but when I'm getting out, she's wearing this big cape, and when we walk into a very cold 2 o'clock in the morning, freezing cold Northern Ireland cave, and this gorgeous woman, Clarice, drops her cape and she's 9 months pregnant. When the previous 2 episodes she wasn't pregnant at all. And then we had to, she had to give birth. So, I mean, what you didn't see was there was quite a bit of pipe work. If you'll excuse the expression, going as hidden as it could be. Let me put it like that. So there was 3 or 4 guys with little pumps to make that prosthetic belly move. And I mean, she had the tougher job. It was really cold, and she was virtually completely naked with this prosthetic belly, and we had to look in astonishment as this guy with this will ruin it for you, but it was a stick with a string and a thing shaped like a shadow. And I mean, none of us had seen a shadow baby before. We had no point of reference. So it was incredibly odd to be watching, and this thing had to grow. So they had the guy on the stick with this cut-out board, lifting this thing up, and we're trying to watch this. I mean, it's incredibly effective. And I remember, because it was the last shot of that episode 4, and I remember looking on the monitor with the director, and there was an exhibition in Dublin where they had this newly discovered Caravaggio painting called The Taking of Christ. It's a magnificent painting. And I remember looking at the monitor and just saying to myself, my God, this looks like a Caravaggio. And the director went, that was the brief. The brief was to make this look like a Caravaggio painting at the end. So that pullback of her sitting with me against the wall, crapping myself, was supposed to emulate the tones and of a Caravaggio painting. And it was incredibly effective, but very strange to shoot.
Patel, on this side now.
Yeah, I have a question for you. Last year you had great locations, set locations. Can you tell us, is there new locations for the next season?
That sounds to me like a man that's looking for spoilers. Yeah, we're going, it's a really big budget this time, we're going to the moon. Now we're, this year, I think, well, I'm back in Spain, I think, this year again. We've stopped in Iceland. I'm actually not sure. I get the raw end of the deal. Everything is Northern Ireland. So basically, from my home to Westeros is an hour and a half, which is great for me because I can go home in the evening. New location. Well, without giving anything away, I'm trying to do this delicately. There's a few. There's some newer kind of smaller locations that we're going to be doing in Northern Ireland. Yeah, there is. Yes, there's a very large event happening that is going to take us a long time to shoot, which I'm going back to start on next week. I'm back filming next week. That's hence this. I hate it. I call it my cubic balaclava. But yeah, we're going to be doing that for the longest sequence that we've shot, I think, in the whole series. I think so far it's going to be really interesting. Yeah, so that's. But as regards country-wise, I don't think we're going anywhere new this year. But it is going to be amazing because for those of you that don't know, this is the first season that we're overtaking the books. I mean, there's obviously some storylines from the books that's going to interweave, but basically the David and Dan and Brian, the writers, the main writers of the show, they're off the hook a little bit more. They know obviously the points of where we're going to go with this, but this, and I've seen the 10 scripts for this season. I know exactly what's going to happen, and it's extraordinary. There's jaw-dropping moments from very early on, and the quality of the scripts are as good, if not better, this season than what we've had in the past. You are absolutely in for a real treat next season. It's extraordinary stuff, both heartbreaking and exciting. And I'm not telling you any more than that.
In your personal opinion, what could be the future for Davos and his death?
Good question, which I know, but I'm not going to tell you. No, well, look, his entire life has been turned upside down. His reason for being there is gone with Stannis, and obviously his emotional heart is broken now with Shireen being gone. So a new adventure, I think it would be fair to say, is about to start. How long that's going to last, I have no idea. Game of Thrones is a bit like life, in a strange way. I mean, when I do movies, you can start with the end of the story and work backwards depending on availability of actors and locations, all that sort of thing. But with this, because it's a series and it's being rolled out chronologically, shall we say, or in some ways chronologically, that you kind of, and because your living isn't guaranteed, that there's there's every possibility you'll be killed at any moment. So you kind of have to treat it like life. You just have to take one day at a time. Which is, in a way, it's really interesting because for an actor, you're playing the moment, which is what you should do as an actor. You should be playing where you're going to be, or I'm going to die here, blah blah blah. And you're playing up to that. We don't know when it's coming, but as they say, follow my bullets. So that's what we do. Next question.
Okay, I have a question. Yeah, obviously. How does it feel to first be behind the camera and act, and then see yourself act on the screen? Is it weird or funny, or how is it?
That's a very good question, and I'm going to answer that with what Carice Van Houten plays. She plays my Red Priestess. She said, you have to remember, we've like 25 or 30 main regular characters in this. It's a proper ensemble piece. So the weird thing is, even though we get the script and we know what's going to happen, we're essentially like the people that have read the books. We read and then we see. But we're, as I say, we're the same. So when you actually get to watch the show, Carice says, and I have to agree with her. So you're watching this and you're loving the show, and then you show up. And you appear to be it's like you ruin it because you're watching. You're saying, if you're trying to see if you haven't made a mess of the scene, or you haven't but it's a complete distraction, and I feel exactly the same. I mean, I watch it at home with the family. The six of us, my daughter's boyfriend as well. We sit on a sofa and watch it, so I watch it as a fan. I genuinely watch it as a fan. I have to tell you something. I did a terrible thing to my daughter. My daughter's 22, so last year when we were filming, the last time I saw Shireen, when I gave it, do you remember I gave her the stag? When I carved the stag, this lovely moment that we had, and I gave it to her for a gift, and she said, will you make a dog? She said, will you make me I gave her a stag, she said, will you make a dog? I said, yeah, I'll make it. I wrote the stag, and I gave it to my daughter. And my daughter, if she was here, she'd be dressed as Zelda. I took her to Comic-Con in San Diego. She had 2 months making her costume. So I gave her the stag, and I said, as I say, she's got a wall of awesome in her bedroom. That's what puts her awesome stuff on. And I said, when episode 9 comes, it'd be a really good idea if you had it in your hand. It's really important. So we watched the episode, and when Shireen is walking towards being burnt, she had the stag in her hand, and when she started screaming, my daughter just fell apart because she had the stag. I didn't realise she was going to be, she was like, she was inconsolable, and I felt like a horrible father. But so I did a terrible thing. But she loved it, really. Can't hear. There we go.
You hear a lot about how it's hard to work with children and animals. Have you personally or others experienced this?
I'm the complete opposite. I've been lucky enough in my career that I've worked with quite a few kids. And unless they're really bad, usually the ones that come, this is terrible to say, but usually the ones that come from drama schools are the worst, because they've been just given some awful tuition and they're acting like this. And, but when I've been grabbed off the street, because you have to remember, kids, their employment is playing. They play. So, and that's what we do when we act. So I'm incredibly lucky with Kerry, who played Shireen. Just a wonderful, I mean, you can't not love Shireen. She's a beautiful character and decent and gorgeous. And she's very much like Kerry. And right through my career, I've been lucky enough. I mean, when you work with kids, if they're the right kids, you learn from them, because they don't have the bullshit that the rest of us have of growing up and, you know, whatever, and have our childishness taken away from us, just through becoming responsible. So when Kerry was on, she's just got a purity to her, and a lot of time, it can be an absolute, most of the time, I can't even remember an exception, to be honest. Working with kids is an absolute joy. There's no politics, it's great.
Hello.
Hello.
I was thinking, as an actor, I suppose you use a lot of your own life and experiences to create the character. And so my question would be, what similarities are there between you and Davos? And are you as loyal to your employees as he is to his?
I'd love to be Davos. He's a decent man, he's loyal, his principles are unshakable. And I think he's the type of guy that you would love on your phone if you were in trouble. He's the first man that would show up, and you just know that he won't sugarcoat answers. He'll tell you exactly how it is. And I always thought of him as, for those of you, most of you probably have seen The Godfather. Robert Duvall's character in The Godfather, Tom Hagen, I think his name is, and he's the consigliere of The Godfather, even though he's not part of the family. And there was always something, and I love Robert Duvall's acting. There was always something that in my mind that was kind of his loyalty was something that I held on to. I mean, strangely enough, for one of the reasons that, again, I like Davos is because where he began. I mean, his father was a crabber. He was a petty thief. He didn't have the money that the Lannisters have, and the education and the position of power and all that. And yet he has more nobility. He has more decency and honour than most of them put together. And I love that. That's one of the things I love about the writing and George's writing and George's building of this character, that this guy is from the worst of the worst shithole in Flea Bottom in King's Landing. And yet he has more decency and more nobility than the people who are in power. And I think that's one of the reasons, not about Davos, but about the show in general, that people like, is that it's not obvious. It's not patronising, it doesn't condescend, it's full of surprises. And you do find yourself questioning yourself when you're watching it. I mean, you know, we had the stuff with Shireen last year and Sansa, which there was major trouble over. But you find yourself questioning it. I mean, especially my daughter went bananas, went mad over what happened to Sansa. She was really, really angry. And as I said to her, I said, look, in this show, bad things happen to good people, and good things happen to bad people. And there's something remarkable about. I mean, the example I use is Jamie in the first season. I mean, Nikolai was despised. People hated him. He was a horrible human being, and all he was a bad guy. And it wasn't until he was kind of captured and met Brienne. And when she was going to be raped, he actually stopped it, and you could see this spark of humanity in this guy. And you find yourself kind of going, maybe it was a bit tasty. And your sympathies shift, and that's what's really clever about the writing and George's books, is that your sympathies do shift. You may like some, I mean, You know, when Stannis came to the rescue of Jon Snow north of the Wall with Mance and all that, all of a sudden Stannis was a hero. But this was the same guy that was burning prisoners with Melisandre, you know, one season before. And so you do find your sympathies and your empathy changing with these characters, and I think that's the sign of grown-up, mature writing. And it's also, you know, like magnificent characters. I mean, the amount of characters that you can watch in this that are fully formed and interesting, and you want to know what they're up to, and you know, if they're not in an episode, you're kind of going, no wonder they're in the next episode. That's incredibly difficult to write for, and I think these guys do a brilliant job. The other thing is, how many shows do you know on television that have as many hugely strong female characters as Game of Thrones? And considering that it's very much a medieval kind of based society, which is run by men, but at the same time, the women we have that are in the show are incredibly dangerous, incredibly clever, murderers. I mean, look at Arya. Arya's this height, and she's killing people on a regular basis, and she's held up as a role model for women. That's the thing, but you get it. You get what her motivations are, and the fact that as each episode goes by, as a human being, she's, even under all this duress, she has an inner heart, you know, she's a steel rod inside her. Her life force can't be crushed, because she's a wonderful character, and Maisie does a brilliant job. So you know, I'm amazed the amount of women that come up and kind of go, you know, we're rooting for this, and Brienne, and these unlikely heroes, female heroes, are. And I think it's about time. Of course, we should have a lot more feed, but it shouldn't be an exception. It should be the norm. But in our show, it is the norm, which is as it should be.
I'm going to give this microphone another try to see if it's working. Hi.
Do you have funny stories from behind the scenes?
Funny stories from behind the scenes.
You're just throwing them now. No. You know what? It's the funny thing is, the reason you don't really see any blooper reels or outtakes on this. There was a couple of them with the guys Jamie dancing. I don't think I've ever been on a show where the work the sets are as quiet as they are. I've never been on a show where, when you get the scripts at the beginning of before we start shooting, there's virtually no changes made. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is that these guys are so good at writing, but the other one is because it's incredibly difficult to shoot this. I mean, it's incredibly cinematic for a television show. The tapestry is vast, and it's that we have to have 2 units running constantly. Sometimes we have a 3rd unit coming in. So if any changes come, significant changes, the domino effect is enormous. It affects everything. So they want these scripts, as I say, bulletproof before we begin. We get a few changes. I've had maybe 10 emails with a couple of sentences changed, but it's all maybe grammatical. Maybe, you know, there won't be any great shift even in the direction or the spirit of the scene. It's just something that, it's a polish, really. So actually, to answer your question, when we hit the set, it's very quiet, it's very workmanlike, it's very intense. These are really long scenes. You've seen them. Some of them, sometimes there's only 20 scenes to an entire episode, sometimes less. And generally speaking, with most dramas, it's almost a page a minute is what the normal thing is. That's kind of MTV editing. It's really fast. So basically, on a lot of dramas, there are exceptions, but it's a page a minute. So on a 55 page thing, you have 54 scenes. We've done episodes that there's not even half that amount of scenes. So you get these long, beautifully written, intricate, strange scenes. So you're completely scared to mess them up. So you don't really mess with them that much. So it's all very workmanlike. That's not to say it isn't fun. We do have a lot of fun. But the work starts, it's really intense. And we kind of really feel we have a responsibility to get this stuff right. But it's glorious to do that, because I've never been on a show where the props are so beautiful, right down to, you know, the money that we use are not just blank pieces of metal, they're actually two different metals with stamps, with bravos, blank stamps on them there. The quality of the props, the quality of the costumes, the sets are extraordinary. It's just everybody is seeing it as an opportunity to do the best work they can, and because of Mr. HBO and his deep pockets, he gives us, you know, for TV, an incredible budget to do these things, to make it look as good as we possibly can. So there isn't too much messing on the set or playing around. There's a lot of it off the set, but not on. Who we got? Yes?
Hang on, it's here.
Here.
And then we think we have the spare microphone working. We're going to test that after this.
Have you read the books, and if so, what do you think about the differences in Davos storyline compared with the show?
Well, I'll answer the second part first. I have no idea, because I haven't read the books. That's the first part. No, they're too big. I'm a really slow reader. What's happening, I'm waiting to get knocked down by a bus where I've got a broken leg and I'm going to be 3 months in a bed, and then I get over it. No, it's not so much that. With David and Dan, their Bible is the books. With me, my Bible is the scripts. And I talked to, we had a premiere in San Francisco this year, and I basically see George maybe twice a year. And I was passing by him, and he was at a table with his wife, and his manager or something, and he called me over again and said, "Well," and I went, "What?" And he said, "Have you read them yet?" I said, George. I said, "I cannot do that." I said, if I read these, I said, it's going to influence what I'm playing. And I don't, when I know there's differences. And that's, I'm not being asked to play a character from a book. I've been asked to play a character from a script. And I have to keep my distractions to the minimum. And as well as that, there might be something great in a book that I'm going to go to the producers. Why don't you put that in the script? And I don't want to be thinking like that. I want to just use what I have, and it keeps my mind clear. But I will. I did say, look, I'm going to open them up as soon as I'm gone in whatever shot. And I'm not saying I'm gone. He said, Liam Cunningham says he's gone. He's dead. I'm not saying that. So he said to me, I want a report. He wants a written report card from me to say what I thought of the books. So yeah, so that's that much book, isn't it? At this stage, is the sixth one coming next year? I think it was supposed to be this year, but it's going to be next year. Okay, so that's going to take me a couple of years. Slowly. Who keeps turning it off? That's what I want to know. Leave it on.
Yeah. Hi. I have great appearances on the Conan show. The second one.
Oh,
yeah. I had a question a little out of bounds. John, Paul, Ringo, or George? And why? Thank you.
Are they the new characters in season 6? John, Paul. Oh, it has to be John Lennon, doesn't it? Purely because I love the sense of humour. I'm sure most of you know this story, but John Lennon was asked by an interviewer, was Ringo Starr the best drummer in the world? And John Lennon's reply was, he's not even the best drummer in the Beatles. So any man that can say that has got my vote. Yeah, John Lennon, of course, is pretty predictable.
Okay, we've got time for just 2 more questions. So if you're the second last, whoever ends up being the last, make sure it's the most awesome question that goes on the awesome wall when he gets home. 3, okay, good, okay, 3. I'll do that.
Mike. Oh, you're not well, are you? This one's blue or green or something like that.
What do you think about Emilia Clarke?
In what way? I can tell you what I think about when I'm alone in bed. My wife would read the
do you think that she's as beautiful in pictures as she is in real life?
I'll tell you something, the only time the cast is together, the only time we all see each other is when there's a red carpet underneath us. Because, you know, some people shoot in Croatia, some people are, you know, Iceland, and blah, blah, blah. So as I say, and, you know, she's so popular now, she's on the front of every magazine and she's dressed beautifully. So anytime I see her, she's in Valentino or Armani, or I don't know what the hell she wears. In my mind, it's Armani. But she's an absolute delight. She's a real sweetheart, and she's more or less straight out of drama school and walked into this madness. And she's just. I mean, nobody has a negative word to say about her. She's very pretty and she's very petite, and she's a wonderful actress as well. I mean, you know, Daenerys. It's very tricky for an actor starting off. I mean, where do you go after playing Colletti? It's very tricky to top that puppy. Yeah, I don't envy her future. Hello.
Hello. Great work on depicting Davos fantastically. Thank you for that. I was wondering about the dynamics between the actors on set. I understood that it's serious, but more specifically, when one character dies, do you have a big farewell party, or is it just kind of nothingness after Game of Thrones?
Oh, we've parties every night. No, we don't. I was quite upset when I mean, you know, most of my scenes, almost all of my scenes were with Stephen Delane. And Stephen and he'd hate me for this. Could be described as an actor's actor. In other words, he's fabulous. He doesn't like. I think producers hate him, publicists hate him because he just doesn't do any of that stuff. He just goes, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to. And he doesn't do any of it because he has no interest in it. The only thing he's interested in is being on the set and doing his thing. And his thing is magnificent. His reputation preceded him, and when I heard he was going to be playing Stannis, I was incredibly excited because I've been a fan of his for a long time. So when you've been working with somebody for 4 or 5 years, and they're suddenly taken away from you, just professionally, it was horrific because I loved working with him. And it's the same with Kerry when Shireen. I mean, they're basically, because the work is so intense. You bond. You have to bond. It's the only way you're going to get through it. You know, you don't just show up and set, do your lines, and disappear. There's work involved. We try and get these scenes. I mean, we run our glamorous lifestyle in this car park a lot of the time when we're working. Any day myself and Stephen were working together, people used to think we were mad. We would just be walking up and down the car park, just running lines, trying to dig deeper into the scene, because the scenes are complex and what's being said isn't necessarily what's being meant, as you know. Something be saying one thing and meaning another, or whatever. So you dig deep. The work is very delicate, and to work with somebody who is as good as Stephen was an absolute joy. So professionally to have that taken away from you is terrible. And we used to basically, on the same with Carice actually. We used to have, like, we'd shoot a scene, if we're on the next day, we have dinner together every night. We virtually live with each other. Apart from sleeping, of course. But we worked and we ate together and stuff. And it's very difficult. But you move on to as in life, you move on to a different set of people, and I mean, we still keep in touch and stuff. But yeah, that was a loss, especially when the work is as joyous as it is.
Okay, is this the awesome question? This is it.
Here we go. No pressure, Chief. This better be yours.
It's on a lighter note. I'm just wondering, how hard is Kit harassed by the production about he knows nothing?
Well, not anymore. Yes, it must be awful for him when you've got a catchphrase and people are shouting it. It's funny, Dutch, anybody that knows British television, Channel 4 News, the main presenter of Channel 4 News is unfortunately called Jon Snow. And he interviewed Kit Harington on Channel 4 News. And at the end of it, the newscaster said, "You know nothing, Jon Snow," to Kit, and Kit went, "Bastards." This is like serious news television show. But that was kind of funny, yeah. It must be a pain in the ass. Thank Christ I don't have a catchphrase. Okay, have we...
Well, I think we've run out of time. We have other commitments today. I just wanted to say two things. One is there's a signing starting at 2:45, which is over by the photo shoot area, if you would like to go along and meet Liam Cunningham. And from my side, I wanted to say thank you to you, but thank you to him, because obviously those watching the websites and stuff know that Katrina Law got a movie at the last second. And it's hard to find a guest as good as Liam to replace somebody at very short notice, and my frantic email, which I think was Monday night or Tuesday morning or whatever, and without hesitation he committed to come and see you. So I think not only do we need to thank him for his panel today, but thank you for making the effort to get here. Liam Cunningham.